93 years old, former President Jimmy Carter is still actively finding ways to serve his country. He and his wife, Rosalynn, have volunteered with Habitat for Humanity since 1984. Together, they have helped build or remodel more than 4,200 homes. In an interview you will only see on CBS This Morning, we spoke to President Carter on a project outside South Bend, Indiana, and met some other famous volunteers. Nearly 40 years after leaving the White House, Jimmy Carter's legacy is still building. It is nearly 94 degrees outside. What are you doing here?
Well, I'm building habitat houses.
With his wife, Rosalynn, President Carter has put in 34 years, helping make more than 4,000 homes in 14 countries. I understand that you and Mrs. Carter renovated your home, the two of you. Did you use the skills of Habitat to do your...
Absolutely, yeah.
What did you do?
Well, we contracted with a carpenter, and he didn't show up when he said he would. So we just decided we'd just do it ourselves.
Now, any married couple that's been together for as long as you have, when they do a project together, I mean, is this smooth sailing with the two of you? How does it go, Mr. President?
No, not always. Not even on the Habitat side. We've been married now, as you know, a little over 72 years, and so we've learned to accommodate one another and to iron out those differences.
Measure twice and cut once is good for carpentry and maybe for marriages.
It is.
We saw that precision up close when we joined the Carters at their latest Habitat for Humanity community near South Bend, Indiana. There are 1,700 volunteers working here. What does that tell you about America?
It tells me that America has a great orientation toward helping people in need. It's very difficult for somebody who's well off to cross a barrier and get in touch with a very poor family who's in need and never has had a decent home. But Habitat provides that avenue very automatically.
In the process, inspiring others to come out swinging, like comedian David Letterman.
I should be thanking you for allowing me to help out and do this.
Well, thank you. Well, you've been working on Habitat for a long time, but I didn't know about it.
Yeah, we started right after Katrina, and found the experience, as you know, overwhelmingly gratifying.
He credits President Carter.
Seeing him and being here on these builds is such a lovely break from the cynicism of life, because just listen to this. It's delightful. You're not just taking out a little tack hammer. You're down in Houston. You're in the suit mucking out the the soggy insulation. Is this? Yes, it was a mistake. There's no getting around it. It was a job for a younger, braver man. But yes, we were doing it. When you're hammering, are you taking more care than if you were building something in your own backyard? Yeah. If I screw up the hammering, that means I have to go to the claw part of the hammer and spend the next half hour doing that while everyone's looking at me. Dave, you're holding up the build, and you don't want that.
I, Jimmy Carter, do solemnly swear.
Jimmy Carter only served one 4-year term in the White House, so he never met the 5-year requirement for a federal pension. But he isn't planning on retiring. Already a former president for longer than anyone in history. You said you thought that telling the truth was important when you were president, but you seem to suggest it might not be so important to the presidency.
Well, that seems to be the case now. You know, I think it's well known that the incumbent president is very careless with the truth. Telling the truth has been pretty deeply ingrained in me, and I think that makes it even more deplorable to me to see that it's been abandoned by some people.
What some people would say, well, that's politics. You know, maybe you have to tell a lie now and again, and maybe even more than that, but you can succeed for your side and get things done.
I disagree with that. I think I went through my campaign and my presidency without ever lying to the people or making a deliberately false statement. And I think that would be a very worthwhile thing to reinsert into politics these days.
The current president's changed the office around a lot of different ways. Do you ever look at the presidency and say, boy, I wish I could have done that. It would have been a lot easier.
Not really. I haven't seen much to be emulated in recent months. But you know, I'm not here to criticize the incumbent president. I just wish him well, and I prayed for him.
Where do you see hope then in today for the rebirth of America, or for the rebounding that people are looking for?
Well, it's bound to come in our country through the electoral process. And I think that America will learn from its mistakes. We don't always elect the best person, that's obvious, I think, including the time when I ran, perhaps. But I think America eventually prevails.
So did you hear that?
So
He said, including the time when I ran,
heard.
perhaps.
Yes, I heard
wait,
that.
Second thoughts about his.
But I like it. Number one, John, it was so good to see him again. And it's just a reminder of what this country is really about. And I like how he ended with, ultimately, America will prevail. I like that.
I'm also struck, and having seen him recently, too, he has spent his life in service to his country. He's a former Navy man. And even after office with his wife, has dedicated his life to this cause, always thinking about the other.
That's right.
Rather than himself. And we're reminded of that, too, with McCain's passing. Well, McCain was selfish in many ways, he would admit. He was so dedicated to the service of his country.
That's right. The transitive property of that selflessness is what hooked Letterman. That's the thing that's amazing, is Letterman calls Carter a beacon. So that selflessness you describe is not just one person doing something. It literally draws others. And that's what was so powerful, not just about David Letterman, but the 1,700 other volunteers who were spending a week there putting up houses for people to give them a good start.
And may I say, it's always good to see David Letterman. I got a big kick out of seeing him. He looks good.
He's missing his Santa suit, though, in the gifts. I mean, that's what I say about Letterman. Looks like Santa.
He's been doing it quietly.
Good to see him.
He's been working on those houses quietly and anonymously for a long time. So he's putting his service into action as well. And today on the CBS This Morning podcast, you can hear our full interview with David Letterman. You can find it on Apple's podcast app or wherever you like to download your podcasts.